then start with item 1, apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Councillor Leader, who's been detained at work, and Councillor Smart, who is attending the meeting about Neptune Road Junction. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, can we agree those?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 3, confirm or vary the order of business, don't propose to change the order of business. Item 4, declarations of interest. If I think I could just make a declaration of interest for all of us on items 11 and 14 to do with the credit union, as we do know the general manager of the credit union, and also Councillor Gibb is a board member of the credit union. Councillor Rudkin.
And in addition, I've used some of my county council locality budget to help with the fit out.
Are there any other further declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. Then move on to item 5, development of housing at Ravenswood areas, UVW. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report sets it out pretty clearly. As the report says, it identifies the next sites for development as part of our house building programme. This particular land at Ravenswood, usually referred to as UVW, as mentioned in here. This is allocated for housing in the local plan. It's land that's in the ownership of the general fund, and therefore to build the houses on it will require a transaction between the general fund and the housing revenue account, and there will in fact be a further report in due course as to the cost of the land. But this land will provide something like 77 houses, 77 properties, and we would hope that we can get on with this pretty quickly. This will be, of course, a significant addition to our stock, bearing in mind the present need. I think that I'm not the only one who would have thought, about time too, because this Ravenswood UVW seems to have been going on and on, so it's a shame that it hasn't been developed before. Anyway, we're in a position to do it, and this is the recommendation. And so in paragraph 14 in the recommendations, that's to approve the development and authorise the undertaking of the necessary steps to get the building started, and that includes applying for planning permission, of course, and to agree that the new homes will be council homes for rent at a social rent. I would like to move that, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything at this stage, Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Anything further to add? No, I think this is obviously a welcome report. So I do remember when we first took control of the council in 2011, as the property portfolio holder, we were actually trying to interest a private developer in buying this land to build housing. We couldn't get anybody to take it on side land, but now we have a well-developed council house building program that we are actually overseeing development of this land. Nobody else wishes to add anything. Can we agree the recommendations at 14?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And then move on to item 6, development of housing at Ulster Avenue. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's another good news report in the sense that another site which is included in the programme, this is Ulster Avenue, which is on the White House estate, of course. This land is in the ownership of the housing revenue account. And it's vacant land where garages once stood, and also overgrown gardens adjacent to it, as again set out in the report. There's also a bit of unused land at the end there, end of the parade of shops in Ulster Avenue. This will provide up to 20 homes, and the same points really apply to this as did to the last one, in the sense that this will provide extra homes which will be valuable in view of present needs. So the recommendations, which are paragraph 14, to approve the development, again to apply for planning permission, take all the various necessary steps, and also to agree that these properties are added to our stock as homes for rent at social rent. I would like to move.
Again, you should.
Thank you, Chair.
I mean, I'd just like to add, you know, other than, as well as the standard benefits of building council housing, which is that we're providing affordable homes for rent for people, we're providing jobs. This site in particular has historically had a lot of issues with antisocial behaviour, so I think the fact that we're providing housing on that, there's a triple benefit from doing this as well, so I think this will be very welcome for residents in the area. If you don't wish to add anything,
I don't.
Can we read recommendations at 14?
Three.
Thank you. And move on to item 7, Energy Company Obligation Project. Councillor Morris.
And now the bad news, Chair. It did start, in fact, as good news, because under the ECO, the Energy Company Obligation Scheme, we had agreed just under a couple of years ago, I think, with a partner company, quite an intensive programme of external wall insulation. And we were going to carry out such insulation to 384 of our older properties over a 2-year period. That means 2013-14 and 2014-15. And of those 384 properties, 152 houses have had the benefit of that external wall insulation. The work has been done on time. It's been a great benefit to the tenants whose homes have had that addition made. It's been a benefit from the point of view of carbon savings. There's been an investment in the town as a result of that. And I have to say that the properties look good as well. And that is not unimportant. Anyway, this was when the government was the self-styled greenest government in the world of all time, apparently. Unfortunately, they're not quite so green now, and fairly recently they changed the rules, which meant that we've had to curtail that programme. And so of the 384 of those properties that were in the scheme to be done, we have 232 homes that we had hoped to benefit from this, that have not had or will not now get the benefit of that. The rules were changed at the time when there was a lot of talk about energy prices. The government let the energy companies off the hook, and the carbon savings are now going to be spread over a longer period of time, which meant that our partner organisation and many similar partner organisations involved with others said, well, this is not really viable, and so they pulled out, which means that we have no longer that programme. That doesn't mean to say we will never ever have a programme or that we're forgetting about it, because we're not. It's very much in our minds that we want to do this work when we can, but it is unviable at the moment. So the recommendations in this report, which are paragraph 12, ask the Executive to note the position, which is unfortunate, as I say. We have to terminate formally the previously approved agreement, but there is included in the recommendations the appointment or authorise those responsible to take action in the event of some scheme which is viable and practicable being taken up without further delay. I would like to move.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Chairman. I think this is desperately bad news, as Councillor Moles says. I mean, the name of the energy company obligation is now an obligation that they no longer have to uphold. They've been freed from that obligation. What it means, obviously, it says in 11.1, is that there's £2.2 million worth of capital funding that could have gone into Ipswich homes and generated jobs in the area will no longer be happening. And the benefits that tenants would accrue from these works as well will no longer be happening. I know from having spoken to 1 or 2 tenants on Greenwich who benefited from this kind of work, it's completely transformational in terms of its impact on their energy bills, their comfort and probably their health at home. So I think desperately sad that this is being chopped back so savagely.
No, I mean, I'll just add my 2 pence as well. I mean, this was letting the energy companies off the hook was the government's response to trying to do something fundamental about reducing energy bills. What we see is, in many instances, the energy companies haven't actually reduced their energy bills, yet we know that for 232 of our tenants, their energy bills are going to be around about £400 a year, £7.70 a week, more than they would have been otherwise before the energy companies were let off the hook. So this is very bad news, not only for those individual tenants, but also for the economy. We would have had a further £2.2 million of investment into our homes in Ipswich. That would have been jobs for people doing that work on Ipswich homes, and that is no longer going to happen either. So by caving into the energy companies, it's very bad news for people living in Ipswich. Does anybody wish to know anything more? Can we read the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, if we move on to item 8, thank you. The financial strategies and medium-term financial plan, otherwise known as the budget. I won't talk to this too long because obviously the main debate will be at council next week. I would just draw councillors' attention to, on page 57, paragraph 2.9, which sets out the scale of the funding cuts that this council is facing, £1.3 million for this coming financial year, a further £1.3 million on top of that the year after and every year after that. So we do have to make significant savings as a result of the cuts from the government, and those cuts we believe are likely to keep coming. Despite that, I believe that we have achieved a number of things as a council that we ought to be proud of. If we look at page 60, we see a long list of things that we've achieved in the last year. I think it's worth just dwelling on some of those. The fact that we have completed the first new council houses in a generation. The fact that we've started work, or will be starting work soon, on the largest council housing scheme in Ipswich for 50 years. And our pipeline of council houses now reaches around about the 300 mark. We've introduced a living wage for our directly employed staff, and we have taken significant steps to stimulate the town centre footfall and trade by reducing car parking charges, in particular quids in, which we'll be looking to extend. I think that played a large part in the fact that whereas many high streets nationally had a reduction in business over the Christmas period, in Ipswich it actually increased. About halfway down the page we talk about making strategic land and property purchases, and of course in the papers last week was our latest purchase, which is the Crown Court building, which we have made strategic purchase there so that we can try and drive forward the development of the Westgate site. But obviously that wasn't the most important thing from most people's point of view, is the fact that we might be able to get into the nuclear bunker. But it certainly created a lot of interest. And perhaps one that isn't quite so important to members of the public, but is very important organisationally to us, is the fact that we have got agreement to implement single status harmonisation, and that will be implemented on the 1st of April. So we have seen significant cuts, government cuts, but we, as a result, we have quite a significant savings programme. If I draw your attention to paragraph 3.17, where we've managed to save £235,000 a year from improved waste contracts. We're looking to increase our income from our property assets. We are looking at reducing area committee budgets. The movement to the 4-day week refuse round scheme will save us in the region of £180,000 a year. The fact that we are undertaking our council house building programme, which involves transfers from the general fund to the housing revenue account, means that our capital receipts have exceeded our expectations, and as a result we are having to spend significantly less, around about £500,000 a year on borrowing. So everybody is benefiting from our council house building scheme. Given that we have made these savings, we are able to fund some small amounts of growth, such as maintaining support for our community and arts organisations and funding the town centre presence for the credit union, which we'll be discussing later. We do have a significant capital programme. We are looking to improve the facilities at Ransom Sports Centre, make sure that we can fund our Parkincorn Hill project. We will be looking to introduce a fund to turn long-term empty shops into housing, and given the success that we've had on our strategic asset purchases, we will be looking to expand that fund as well. Looking at on page 67 from paragraph 333, long-term budget strategy, as I've said, we fully expect the government to keep cutting. They say the economy is getting better, they say the deficit is reducing, but we are still seeing the cuts, and we are expecting that to happen for some time. So we do need a long-term strategy. We do need to identify items which can save a significant amounts of money, and that is set out in this section with paragraph 3.37, identifying those savings areas. Finally, if we just look at on page 72, which is what this means in terms of council tax, we have finally had from the government the referendum cap limit, which is a referendum cap of 2%. So the figures in this paper we're not proposing to change. Some people, I suspect, would like to set the opposition, which is a false opposition, that it's either increasing council tax or cutting services. The fact of the matter is, given the scale of the cuts that we've got, even if we increase council tax, we are still probably going to have to cut services in the future. And therefore, by not increasing council tax, what we are saying is that residents, Ipswich residents in the future, will see bigger cuts in services. Therefore, it is our proposal to increase the Ipswich Borough Council part of council tax by 1.9%. That will be, for the majority of our residents, an increase of 9p a week or less, and on the total bill will be less than 0.4% increase in council tax. That is obviously significantly less than the rate of inflation, so a cut in real terms. When we were elected, we said that we would protect frontline services. We have continued to make that our top priority, and I believe that that is what this budget delivers, not only for the coming financial year, but for future financial years as well. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points to add. I mean, I think the first thing is that this report is the culmination of many months' work. This process, I think, as all councillors know, began back last summer. It's a process that we've run for the last couple of years, which is an open process. It provides an opportunity for every councillor on this authority to have an input to the budget process, and it also has involved our staff in the consultation process. It's involved working groups led by portfolio holders and overview and scrutiny. So the content of the budget is very much a collective work that's been put together over a period of many, many months. I think, as you've said, one of the things that we found difficult has been the rather volatile position that we've been trying to manage with in terms of the funding and the rule set that is coming from central government. First of all, the cuts in revenue support grant, which was even more savage than we'd imagined, falling by almost a half over a period of 2 years. And also, as you said, the referendum limit, which I think was only confirmed sometime last week, which was rather difficult to work with from a planning perspective. But anyway, here we are. I think, as you said as well, there's no sign of austerity abating in central government. Looks set to continue probably towards the end of this decade. And I think for that reason, the strategic decision that we've taken in this report that is set out, which does not use all of the council's reserves over the next 3 years, but keeps some back for further cuts outside of the MTFP period, is a sensible one and more prudent than what we had in last year's paper. I think that's all I want to say, Chair. Thank you.
Not to add anything, Mr. Anderson.
No, thanks, Chair.
Say something about the adequacy of the reserves or something. Are there any other comments on the paper? No, obviously we will have a full debate on this at full council next week. Can we agree with recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. If we then move on to item 9, which I will take in Councillor Leader's absence. This is the annual report setting out the allocation of the community grants pot. There are a number of things to note in this year. As in previous years, we are not reducing the amount of money that we're giving to community organisations, unlike most of the councils surrounding us, and indeed the county council. And in fact, we're looking to increase the amount of money that we are giving to community organisations. They are, if one looks at the list in Appendix 1, many of these organisations are picking up the pieces of some of the cuts that we're seeing here in Ipswich, and I think it is only right that we do try to bolster them and give them more support. Other noteworthy items are, as a result of the increase in the community grants pot, we are able to make a significant increase to the funding that we're giving to the Ipswich Housing Action Group. The Ipswich Housing Action Group was rather dumped on them to running the Community Resource Centre when the previous administration went through their brief flirtation with the big society, which was that volunteers were going to do everything. That hasn't worked out right, and Ipswich Housing Action Group were burning through their reserves running the Community Resource Centre. Given that this is a facility which is dealing with people right at the sharp edge of government cuts, and they are dealing with more and more people all the time, I think it is right that we give them support. And therefore, I'm very glad that we can increase their funding, which will mean that they are able to continue to deliver that service and indeed to expand it. The other noteworthy point from this list is that we have been able to expand by another 2 the number of community groups that are getting 3-year funding deals. 3-year funding deals are very important for these groups. Most of them are living hand by mouth. They don't know whether they're going to get their funding from one year to the next, and the certainty that they, from the borough at least, that they are guaranteed to get funding for a 3-year period does give them a huge amount of certainty. It also, given that a lot of these are small organisations, it saves down a huge amount of paperwork that they've got to do every year as well. So we have been able to expand the number of 3-year funding deals, one to IHAG and the other one to the Citizens Advice Bureau, who again are under increasing pressure because of the number of people going to them because of the economic situation. So I think very good news this year from the community grants pot, and I think a significant contrast to some of the other councils who surround us here in Suffolk. Does anybody wish to add anything? Okay. So can we agree the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Then move to item 10, outcomes of the building control service review. Councillor MacDonald.
So I wonder if Mr. Hooper is going to come forward so he can answer all the difficult stuff here.
I'll answer the difficult questions for you, yeah.
This is one of the first service reviews that took place, and you can see in Appendix 1 that the outcomes are summarised, and I can assure you it's a much shorter summary than the vast array of documentation that we went through in the autumn as part of the transformation programme. Most of building control is a statutory service, so the actual opportunity for transformation is pretty limited. And essentially, the recommendations at 11.2 are the three things that we can realistically do with the service. So one is to try and bring in extra income. Secondly, is try and ensure that we have preferential supplier treatment for any housing the borough builds. And thirdly, to have a look at the shared service with other councils. So I'd just like to move the recommendations, and Mr. Hook is here for any questions.
So are there any questions or comments on this? And this has, I think, probably most portfolio holders have been involved in this at some point during the process. It has been exceptionally rigorous, although this is quite a small service area. Therefore, the savings targets were not enormous. They have been met, so hopefully that gives us some confidence that we will be able to achieve those savings targets as we take the other services through the transformation programme. Can we agree recommendations? Thank you. If you then move on to item 11, supporting a town centre presence for Ipswich and Suffolk Credit Union. I think many councillors have been involved in the work that's been done in their areas to try and tackle the scourge of loan sharks, but that has tended to focus on the illegal loan sharks. But of course there is an equal problem that we have at the moment, which is the legal loan sharks, the payday lenders, who charge vast amounts of interest to those people unwary enough to take loans with them. I think it is important that we do try to tackle these payday lenders. We have always tried to push the credit union as a cheap and ethical alternative to loan sharks and payday lenders. However, we do have a number of payday lenders operating in the town centre. We've got shops in the town centre, and if we genuinely want the credit union to be able to take them on, then I think they need to do so head on, and therefore they need a town centre presence as well. Certainly that's something that we've tried to encourage and been very clear that we want that to happen. It is also equally clear that the business plan and finances of the credit union would not at this stage have been able to facilitate an early town centre presence. So therefore we are looking to take out the rental of a town centre shop and make that available to the credit union. That will enable them to take on the payday lenders direct. Of course, it does also have the added advantage that we've brought an empty shop back into use, and also an empty shop at a very prominent location as well. So there are wider economic benefits from the action that we've taken. But I think this is a very positive step, and if we can save just a few people from the clutches of the loan sharks and the payday lenders, I think it would be worthwhile. The evidence is from other credit unions where they've opened a town centre presence that it has led to a significant, large numbers increase in the business that they've been doing. So we can hope that will see a similar situation here in Ipswich. Does anyone wish to add anything? Councillor Rocking.
I just wanted to say that as it's a service that's currently running in my ward, I'm delighted that it'll be much easier to explain to people where it is than where it is at the moment, when I know where it is, but it is a little bit tucked away. I think you're absolutely right that the position in town, it's excellent, and that people be able to see it as they come into town along buses and so on. And it's really, really good to see that. And it's not just about, the credit union has a variety of products, I think is the word, isn't it? And it's all sorts of financial services that people can have access to, and it's excellent to see this having such a prominent place.
I mean, it's not just the fact that they're in the town centre as well. I think it has also spurred them on to increase the opening hours, in particular on Saturdays as well. So it's not only more accessible from a geographical point of view, it will actually be physically open for longer as well. So very good news. Can we agree the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And if you could then move item 12 to the exclusion of the public due to discussion of confidential items.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.